Hey, Trail Kreitzer at goHUNT. Recently I wrote an article on selecting tents for different types of hunts, different types of seasons. One of the questions that we get asked often is what would be the best tent selection for an early season hunt. I had the guys up from Vegas today, so I asked them to throw some of the tents in that we have in the gear shop, some of the ones that I think make the best sense for an early season hunt. And today I just wanted to run through those options. You can see we've got them set up behind us. I'm going to run through some of the features that make each tent unique and why one tent might be a better choice for you over another one. I'm going to run through the weights, the specs, and give you everything that you need to know to make the best selection for your early season hunt this year. The first tent that we have on the end here is the MSR Hubba NX. If you're familiar with MSR and the Hubba series, you'll know that the Hubba and the Hubba Hubba and the Mother Hubba, those have all been in those lines for a number of years. I think my first freestanding two-man tent that I bought was a Hubba Hubba. This is the solo version, the Hubba NX. So if you're looking to go on a solo hunt, this is an excellent option. I've got buddies that hunt together. You know, they don't want to share a tent, so you want to have your own space. This is an excellent option. MSR is known for making really quality gear. Their poles are super strong, lightweight materials. The treatment on this rainfly is said to last up to 7 times longer than some of the comparable brands. This is a really nice water tent, breathable tent. I should touch on one of the things that people really like about a double wall tent during early season hunts is that it provides 2 things for you. One, protection from bugs. So if you're hunting early season, you've got mosquitoes, biting flies, those kinds of things. It's kind of nice to have a double wall tent with that internal mesh screen, kind of eliminate some of the bugs that can get into your tent and eat you alive at night. I've certainly had that happen before. It's not a fun experience. One of the other reasons for a double wall shelter is to cut down on condensation. So anytime you've got that dead air space between the mesh internal portion of the tent and the rain fly, it's going to do better. It's going to be more breathable. You're going to have less condensation. So that's a couple of reasons why you might consider one of these types of shelters. With that, I'm just going to show you some of the features of this Hubba that make it unique and make it a good option for an early season solo hunter. One of the things that's unique about it is the way that the vestibule and the actual entry works out. Most tents run their entry down the center of the vestibule, so you have a center zip. Something that MSR does that's unique to their tent is they run the zipper, the entry, down the side here. What that does is allows you to basically peel back that vestibule, creates a little pocket or a shelter. So let's say you've got a storm that's blowing in from the north here. You want to kind of create a little nook and a cranny that's going to buck the weather really well. You're going to create a nice storage for your gear and your equipment. It's going to allow you protection for you once you get into the tent, but also give you a little spot to kind of hide out and get your stuff situated, your gear put away, and get tucked into your tent. Another thing is you've got a little rain gutter here that runs along this tent that's going to direct water away from the vestibule, which is nice because you're going to end up storing your gear in that at night. I'm just going to open up the tent and kind of show you what it looks like on the inside. As I unzip that, you can see I've got a place here I can roll the fly back and secure that. One of the other features I like about this tent is it's got a crossbar that goes across the top of it. As you look at this crossbar, it's relatively wide. What that does is it actually creates internal space within this tent. Instead of some of the other tents that you get like a narrow wall on the inside, this one actually has almost vertical walls, which is great. Creates head space. Creates a nice internal space for you to sit up and get dressed, get your gear situated inside this tent. It's got a great bathtub floor within this. It's super waterproof, completely watertight, this tent. It does really well in the rain, really well in the weather. You can see that this tent does relatively well in the wind due to this 2-pole configuration. You've got the one that goes across it vertically with the fork at the end that goes to each individual post at the end. You've also, like I said, got this wide pole in the middle. It's a great setup to buck the wind. Another thing I like about this tent is that at each corner you actually have tension levers. So you can see you've got an easy way to stake that out and get a really nice tight pitch on this MSR tent. Setup on this Hubba NX is pretty dang easy. Like I said, you've got one pole that goes over the end, one in the middle. All you do is simply put the poles together, shove one on each corner. It's got some clips that attach. Those just clip on really easy. You do the center pole, throw the rain fly on. I would say from start to finish, you can set this tent up in about 6 or 7 minutes. Total weight on this tent is going to be 2 pounds 15 ounces. That's with everything, stuff sacks, the whole nine. You can get away with going in at about 2 pounds 7 ounces. If you ditch the stuff sacks, you just take exactly what you need. So it's not too bad for a one-man tent with this much versatility, 2 pounds 7 ounces. Okay, if you're familiar with MSR tents, you know that they are a quality product, a quality tent. They've been in the game a really long time, producing the same line of Hubba tents. I think if you buy this tent, you know, the price on it's $379.95. I feel like you get great value for this tent. You get really strong poles, you get quality materials, you get a great design that offers plenty of room. You've got added ventilation on both sides. You've got this unique door opening that's unique to MSR. I think if you're looking for a one-man tent for early season, maybe even into that middle shoulder season, I think this is an excellent option. The next tent that I have for you is my personal tent. This is my very favorite solo shelter. This is the Hilberg Enon. If you're familiar with the Atco, which is, you know, everybody knows the Hilberg Atco, this is very similar to that tent. It's just a lighter weight version of it. This is a 3-season tent, although I think you probably could push the limits of this tent and get it into some later season stuff. But essentially, they built this tent to be as lightweight as possible in this configuration. This tent has a ton of features that I really like about it. I think if you're looking for the ultimate shelter for ridgeline camping early season, where you need maximum weather protection, it needs to be really bomb-proof in the wind, you need that low profile. If you're hunting high country mule deer, this is an awesome option if you're gonna camp right there at a ridgeline or, you know, just above timberline. All right, so let's jump in and look at some of the features that make this tent unique. First, you can see the material. So the material is Curlon 1000 ripstop. It's super high tenacity, it won't rip. A few years ago when I met with Hilleberg, she ran me through one of these little demonstrations where you try to rip some of the competitors' ripstop, and then you try to rip their ripstop. I can tell you that the strength that is built into a Hilleberg tent, into that exterior, it's there. It's a robust tent, it's not gonna rip, especially under, you know, high winds. It's a single hoop design, so you only have one hoop to worry about. Single hoop that runs through the middle of the body. That hoop is actually easy to install. It's got a couple of receivers at both ends. It takes a matter of seconds to install that. The pole is actually the same strength pole that they put in the Atco. Super high strength pole in this shelter. You can see that you've got a couple of guy outs at each end with a pole that is included already in that. You've got a mesh panel at the base that provides some space, that gap and breathing room and airflow into the tent on each end. You can see that the tent is symmetrical, so it looks the same. You know, you've got the middle hoop design, you've got both ends are exactly the same, and it actually builds in a bunch of interior space within this tent. So I'm gonna open up this tent, show you what the inside of it looks like, give you an idea of the size, and also show you the size of the vestibule. So this tent, it's got dual zippers here at the top, one going up, one going down, which is a great little feature for it. I'm just gonna grab the bottom one here, open that up. You've got tie-off loops for your excess here. So you can see you've got a great little pocket here for your gear, your boots. Internally, you can see that it holds that shape. You've got a flat side here, but you do get that added space on the exterior on the other side. It's kind of a diamond shape on the outside. The thing I like about that is I've got enough room in there for my sleeping pad, my sleeping bag, but I've also got some room on the side. So if I want to store my binoculars or anything that I really need to keep dry inside my tent, I've got room to do so, which is nice. As with all the features on a Hilleberg tent, you get quality materials all the way around. One of the things that I wanted to touch on is just that the four corners are actually metal rings and hoops. That does two things. One, adds durability. Two, it's super easy to pitch. You're not trying to thread a thin, you know, guy outline or something like that. You just simply pop that metal piece over and it's an easy setup. Some of the other features about this tent that I like, are just simply in the design. This tent sheds water and weather extremely well. Like I said, this is my personal favorite tent if you're looking for a solo early season tent, even onto those shoulder seasons, you know, talking October, maybe even November. And then on the backside, if you're spring bear hunting, you know, it's an excellent option for that March time frame. Total cost on this, $675. The weight on this tent with everything, stuff sacks and the whole nine, you're gonna be into that 2 pounds, 10 ounces. You can slim that down, get rid of any of the excess stuff sacks or anything like that, and actually get it down to about 2 pounds, 2 ounces. So it's pretty lightweight for a solo shelter. So once again, this is the Hilberg Enon. I would say if you've got the money to put into it, this is a really, really good choice for a 3-season solo tent. The next tent that I have for you is the Big Agnes Tiger Wall UL2. Big Agnes advertises this tent as a 2-person tent, which you could certainly get 2 people in this, no problem. It's got some features that make it an excellent option for 2 people. For as lightweight as this tent is, 1 person could pack this tent and get away with it and have tons of room. This tent has a bunch of features that I really like. I'm gonna jump in and touch on each one of those. I still think this is an excellent option if you're looking for a 3-season, ultra lightweight 2-person tent. Jared that works in our gear shop, this is his personal favorite tent for 3-season hunting. One of the first features that I wanted to highlight, something that I personally appreciate about it, is how easy it is to set up. It's a simple pole design. You've got a pole that forks at each end. You also have a cross pole that creates those vertical walls and that added space on the interior portion of the tent. One of the cool features though in setting this tent up that I liked is you've got these color-coded buckles on each end. You've got a yellow buckle to a yellow receiver. The other end, you've got a gray buckle to a gray receiver. So there's no questioning on, you know, what goes with what. It's very simple and easy to set up. You've got multiple guy out points along the tent. One of the things that I like about this tent is that you have dual vestibules. So you've got 2 vestibules, one going off each side, and you've got 2 entrances, which is what makes this tent such a great option for 2 people. You know, if you've ever hunted with a buddy in the backcountry, you know that you don't want to crawl over your buddy in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom or get out and get your gear. You want to have your own entry, your own spot for your own equipment. So this does that. 2 entrances, 2 vestibules, storage for each and everybody's equipment. The doors on this are simple. They've got the center zip that comes to the bottom. You've got a little bit of added weather protection here, which is going to shuttle any rain or precip to the sides, which is great. So you've got a couple of tabs here that allow you to roll that back and secure your door, which is nice when the weather's good. You can open that door up and get maximum ventilation through the tent. I'm gonna open this up and kind of give you an idea of the kind of room that you've got inside this tent. It's actually got kind of a semi-rectangle, so it's not a perfect rectangle. It's more narrow at the base, which creates you know, enough headroom at the top for 2 people, and you're gonna have that slimmer foot box for both of your feet. One of the best features about this Tiger Wall UL2 is the overall lightweight nature of it. Fully packed stuff sacks and everything. You're into this 2 pounds, 8 ounces. If you ditch it down to just the slim things that you need, stick that in your pack, you can get as low as 2 pounds, 3 ounces. So it's an extremely lightweight setup for 2 people. And like I said, for 1 man, it's a palace, and it's still lightweight enough that a guy can pack it on his own and feel okay about it. I've had these tents all set up here this afternoon. We've had a pretty good wind coming in from the southwest. I've been really surprised at how well this tent has done in the wind. Very minimal movement. I think this would be an excellent option for early season mule deer hunting, spot and stock archery at high country. You know, if you camped at timberline or even on an exposed ridge, I think this would be an excellent option, especially given the lightweight nature of it. This tent, I feel like, is pretty decently priced. I mean, it's not cheap, but it's not ultra expensive either. $399.95. I feel like it's a pretty good value for what you get in this tent. 2 guys could split this tent up and go extremely lightweight. I mean, as much as, you know, 1 pound, just over a pound per guy. So once again, this is the Big Agnes Tiger Wall UL2. Of all the tents I have set up here today, I think this is one of my more favorite options. If I was looking to buy a new tent myself for 2 people, I would strongly consider this tent. The next tent that I have for you in the lineup is the Big Agnes HV UL Fly Creek 2. So the Fly Creek has been in the lineup for Big Agnes for a bunch of years. It's really well known. It's typically been one of the tents that people gravitate to. They're looking to go ultra lightweight. It is a super lightweight tent. You're only into this tent 2 pounds, 5 ounces with bag and everything. You can get this down to as low as 1 pound, 15 ounces. So sub 2 pounds for a 2-person tent. It would be a fairly snug fit in my opinion for 2 people. It's definitely doable. For 1 person, you know, you got tons of room. I think it makes more sense for a solo hunter that wants some extra room rather than maybe 2 people. But like I said, you can certainly put 2 people in this tent. It's got enough room to do so. If you notice, it has a single vestibule, single entrance in the front. The vestibule is off the front of the shelter, which you have front access into the tent. It can be seen as a bit of a limitation where you've only got the 1 vestibule for both of your gear if you're using 2 people in this tent. For 1 person, you've got ample room in this vestibule and it's not that big of a deal at all. Some people think that there's an issue in getting into your sleeping bag if you're rolling into it from the front. I personally have used this tent. I don't think it's that big of a deal, especially in this UL2 where you've got enough room for 2 people. You can actually slide in. You've got room enough to store any excess gear that you want on the inside of it if you are solo. For 2 people, you can see that you'd be in there relatively snug. It does have somewhat of a tapered design where it's slightly more narrow at the foot box than it is at the top. Not that big of a deal with 2 people. You can just sleep shoulder to shoulder. You've got your feet at the end of the tent. Some of the other features that I like about this tent, once again, you can see you've got the storm flap over the zipper that's going to direct any precipitation or rain away from the zipper from leaking inside the tent. The Big Agnes tents are fully seam taped, which is nice. You're not going to get any leaks. Watertight, really high quality ripstop nylon materials. You have a single pole with this tent. You've got a center hub here with a horizontal section that goes down to each side in the front, and then 1 long pole that goes vertically along the top of the tent. This center pole here creates a lot of volume, which is why this tent has the HV in the title, the name of it, high volume. You have a ton of internal volume within this tent. You can sit up in it. You got plenty of room to sit up and get dressed, get your gear organized. While this pole design does create a nice volume and internal space within this tent, it can also be a bit of a con because you've got that single pole design that goes to the back of the tent. It maybe isn't the best in the wind. You can see today, just in the wind that we've had, you can see that it tends to push this pole across the center of it. I would say if you're using this tent in an area with some high wind, I would be careful on how you set it up. So if you set it up with the prevailing wind blowing, across long ways to the tent, you're going to get less of this side motion that's going to blow your tent. This tent may not be the best choice in high winds. So if you're camping on an exposed ridge line above timber, there may be a better option for you. What you get out of this tent is ultra lightweight, ultra packability, tons of room for 1 guy. If you reuse this with 2 people, you can be into this as little as a pound a piece. You could split the rain fly, the body, and the poles and the stakes. You're into this tent, just over a pound per person, which is not much weight at all. This would be a great weekender tent to split between 2 guys during early season scouting, early season archery deer, or even early season archery elk. So once again, this is the Big Agnes HVUL Fly Creek 2 tent. It's a great tent for 2 people, Palace for 1, pretty decent price point at $349.95. Hey, the last tent that we have in our lineup here is a tent that I personally really like. It's not a tent that most would consider as like your ultralight backpacking tent, but it has some features about it that I really like, and I think it's a great option. I think there's probably a lot of people that may overlook this tent, and it might not be for every use case scenario, but like I said, there's some features I really like about it that I wanted to touch on. So this is the Big Agnes Blacktail 2 Hotel. It's got tons of room. So this is a 2-person tent with a garage on the front, which is awesome for storing your gear, your equipment. You could actually even store a cooler in there if you're car camping. One of the best features that I like about this tent is the overall cost, $249.95. That's a pretty decent price for a tent with this many features. This is not the lightest weight tent of all the tents that I've talked about today. With all the packaging, you're gonna be into it 5 pounds, but you can get this tent down to as little as 4 pounds, 8 ounces if you just take the bare minimals. You split that between 2 people, you're into it just over 2 pounds per person, which is pretty reasonable for a tent that you get this much space and this many features in. I'm just gonna walk you around and show you what the inside portion of this tent looks like. If you wanna follow me, come on! So I just wanted to show you the entrance to this tent. This is the front portion. I kept talking about the garage. You can see if you open up this vestibule here, you've got tons of room for gear storage. A lot of guys that are maybe scouting with a dog, this is a great option. You got a place for your dog to sleep. So you can see you've got the door here. You can simply open that up and you've got access into the internal portion of the tent. You've got plenty of room for 2 people. It's perfectly rectangular, so you can sleep head to foot if you want to get some space. One of the other features that I touched on is you've got an additional entrance on the backside with a full vestibule. So like I said, each person has their own entrance. You have this huge garage off the front for gear storage. You know, for $249.95 at 5 pounds, you know, you split that between 2 people with all the added space. I think this is an excellent option for truck camping, even backpack hunting. I think you could take this on an early season deer hunt, an early season elk hunt, and maybe get it even into October. I think this is probably the tent I'm gonna end up taking on my hunt with my boy. He's 15, he's got an elk tag this year in Colorado. We'll probably end up taking the dog. This is a tent that I think I'll probably consider for that hunt. So once again, this is the Big Agnes Blacktail 2 Hotel. So hopefully today I've given you some ideas and some thoughts on what you might consider for a 3-season tent. If I were looking at the tent lineup that I've got here for you today, if I was looking for a tent that's gonna buck the wind really well, it's gonna do great in snow and rain. For a solo hunter, I would suggest the Hilberg Enon. Again, it's got the highest price tag of the tents that we have here. I think the second one, kind of my second favorite, would be the Tiger Wall UL2. Seems to do really, really well in the wind, ultra lightweight with tons of room. I really like the Blacktail Hotel 2. It's a little bit heavier, but you get tons of extra space with the front vestibule on that. The other 2 excellent options, super lightweight. MSR, you get the name, you get the dependability and the durability of an MSR tent. The Fly Creek, I mean, the Fly Creek has been in their lineup for a bunch of years and it's super lightweight for 2 people. So hopefully I helped you out, giving you some thought on what tent you might want to buy for a 3-season hunt. If you guys have any questions about these tents, please drop a comment below. I'd be happy to answer those for you. We have a ton of other shelters in the gear shop. I'm gonna do another video on some of the floorless shelters, the tarps from Seek Outside, and just some general tarps that we carry. Once again, early season, freestanding double wall tents that we have in the gear shop. These are all available right now.